Hello, David Crenshaw here, physical therapist, yoga teacher. For about 14 years, I owned a physical therapy clinic and a yoga studio. During that time, I got to work with both people in the capacity as the physical therapist and also watching them move and practice and try to learn yoga. I wanted to present in this course what I believe are the most fundamental things to learn in a yoga practice to help prevent problems and injuries from occurring and to help people really get the fundamentals down so that their yoga practice is beneficial, very healthy for them. So let's begin. In Joint Wise Yoga, we'll learn 7 healthy alignment and movement principles. We'll learn 12 yoga postures and 5 breathing practices. The type of breathing I'd like you to learn first is called lateral breathing or thoracodiaphragmatic breathing. How's that for a mouthful? Here I'll demonstrate for you what that looks like, breathing out to the sides. What you don't want to do is to breathe into the chest or into the belly, as that may alter the posture. Of course, I'm exaggerating here. When we're standing with a good neutral alignment of the spine, we're going to be able to move well in the 3 planes of motion. But notice that when the spine changes its shape, now it's not going to have the same mobility available to it, then it's going to alter these movement patterns. These patterns are going to be shorter, but to move the same distance that we might be used to, we're going to have to strain certain areas of the body and maybe move too much in those flexible areas, too much in the back or the neck or the shoulder or the knee or the hip. For session 2 practice, let's build upon what we've learned so far. We've learned how to move better in the 3 planes of motion. Now we want to move and add when to inhale, when to exhale, and then to tweak, the quality of our movement in those 3 planes a little bit in this session as well. Then we're going to add sit to stand motion. We're going to practice that and then see how it evolves right into our chair pose. And then the same way with the breathing technique that we're going to work on, we're going to add from lateral breathing, we're going to work on extending the length of the breath a little bit and letting ourselves exhale a little bit longer. And again, to translate that into our real life and to practice those things. So let's begin. The hip flexors are deep inside. You can see that lumbar spine there, front of the lumbar spine and the front of the pelvis here. And deep inside, deep to the intestines, we have the psoas and then the iliacus, these 2 big muscles. And then they go over the front of the pelvis and then attach to the hips down here. So the short hip flexors is a major problem in the modern era. Too much sitting. The hip flexors can overstretch the back because they attach to the back. They can overarch the back. Because they're attached here, by the time the hip goes backwards, it's going to pull that spine forward. So you can see that a little more easily here, how the muscle goes in front of the pelvis and attaches to the hip. And so it can pull the spine forward. And when that spine gets pulled forward, it can put a strain into the back and overarch the back. See that lumbar spine and the psoas. And then, of course, our abdominals go from here to here, and they keep that back from overarching. So warrior 1 pose stretches those hips. You can see that muscle goes like this, that psoas, those hip flexor muscles goes like that. So we need to use our abs to stabilize so that we don't overarch our back. So here's stepping back to warrior 1. So we go from standing pose through chair pose and then step back towards warrior one. So I'm going to try to step backwards towards chair pose and then just let my foot go behind me. And it's a good idea to start by hanging on to something, and then that way you can really focus on the quality of the motion rather than the bouncing. Because if you try to go back as far as you can, your back is going to arch, and it's not going to do what we want it to do at all. Cobra pose. So another type of back bend that we got to watch out for overarching the back is Cobra pose. So by the motion starting at the hips, it helps to get the belly off the ground right away. This gentleman, you can see, he really needs to work on moving first at his hips, and he has a lot of hip muscles here, right? It's going to make it harder for his hip to move, so he's going to have to be really conscious to move this part first so he doesn't overarch his back. So here's a little demonstration of the motion that we're talking about. We want to let the pelvis move first, then roll the spine up. And I'm going to show you the difference between, say, how that last gentleman was moving and the first. That's what we don't want, is to put that motion right into the back. Here's what we do want. We want to be able to roll that pelvis back, then flow the spine up. Low from the bottom up. And so when we do cat pose, A or B, right? So we want to practice things that are healthy for our overall spine and not practice things that just facilitate the type of problems that people get into anyway. As far as stress reduction, so which pattern is conducive to stress reduction? So I bet you're picking B and C are most conducive to stress reduction in the body. Where should the back bend begin? You would think just by the name of it, back bend, right, that it starts on the back, but no, we know now you want to start it in the hips. True or false, starting the motion to come out of warrior pose, for example, by first going a little bit in the opposite direction can reduce stress on the body and the joints. Definitely true. So which of these helps to counter the effects of sitting? Ding, ding. I bet you said B. Definitely things we want to do to counter the effects of sitting in our life. So going forward, what should you practice? Definitely use the yoga postures. They can make a huge difference. And then if you're using them with the breathing and the movement principles in mind, you've got it. For your convenience, here's a list of the 12 postures. In our practice session, we're going to go through each of the postures. So get ready to practice, and let's practice together. And thank you so much for doing the course.